It is Wednesday, July 29, 2026. The Federal Reserve holds interest rates steady in Chair Kevin Warsh's first meeting at the helm. The Senate confirms a new Director of National Intelligence. The Treasury Department escalates sanctions on Russia's oil trade, plus a record-pace Ebola outbreak in the Congo and a ninth straight night of U.S. strikes on Iran. Here are the day's top stories, straight from official government sources. The Federal Reserve's Open Market Committee voted to hold the federal funds rate steady at 3.50 to 3.75% following its two-day meeting on July 28th and 29th. This was Chair Kevin Warsh's first meeting leading the committee. The Fed stated that recent economic activity is expanding at a solid pace, while inflation remains elevated relative to its 2% goal. This meeting fell outside the quarterly cycle that includes a summary of economic projections, so no updated rate forecast or dot plot accompanied the decision. The committee also reaffirmed its policy of maintaining ample reserves in the banking system, a technical stance aimed at keeping short-term funding markets stable. Warsh takes over the committee at a moment when policymakers are weighing a still elevated inflation reading against a labor market that has cooled but not collapsed, according to the Fed's own July monetary policy report to Congress, which was submitted to lawmakers earlier this month. Why it matters? The hold signals the new Fed chair is proceeding cautiously, balancing solid growth against inflation that remains above target without committing to a rate cut timeline in his opening meeting. Markets and borrowers alike will be watching the next meeting closely for any shift in that stance. The Senate voted 51 to 47 to confirm Walter Clayton of New York as Director of National Intelligence in a roll call recorded July 28 at 6:21 p.m. Eastern. Two senators did not vote. The confirmation followed a separate cloture vote of 86 to 12 earlier that evening on a motion to proceed to other Senate business. The Director of National Intelligence oversees coordination across the U.S. intelligence community, reporting assessments directly to the President. Confirmation votes for top intelligence posts typically draw closer partisan margins than other Senate business, reflected in the narrower 51 to 47 tally, in contrast to the broader bipartisan support seen on the evening's procedural cloture vote. Why it matters? The confirmation fills a key national security post amid ongoing military operations in the Middle East, giving the administration a Senate-confirmed intelligence chief during an active conflict period, closing a leadership gap at a time when intelligence coordination carries heightened stakes for policymakers monitoring fast-moving developments overseas. The U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control announced sweeping sanctions July 27, targeting Russia's oil production and export network, including two major Russian oil producers. The action also sanctioned an unprecedented number of oil-carrying vessels tied to Russia's so-called shadow fleet, along with opaque oil traders, oil field service providers, and Russian energy officials. Treasury said the move fulfills a G7 commitment to reduce Russian revenue from energy exports and comes as allied governments continue coordinating on enforcement. It follows a separate action the same week removing 84 individuals and entities from sanctions lists and updating identifying information on 22 more as part of a broader sanctions modernization initiative announced by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in May. Why it matters? Targeting the shadow fleet directly strikes at Russia's main workaround for prior sanctions, aiming to further squeeze the revenue funding its war effort, and signals Washington's willingness to escalate economic pressure alongside G7 partners. The World Health Organization reported that an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has become the third largest on record, with 2,073 cases and 796 deaths as of its July 16th briefing. The Director General said the outbreak expanded faster than any previous outbreak in the prior month. The outbreak was declared roughly 2 months before the briefing by the DRC government. WHO continues to coordinate with national health authorities on containment and treatment response as case counts climb, part of a broader set of global health emergencies the Director General flagged in recent briefings, alongside a separately declared hantavirus outbreak the agency confirmed earlier in July. Why it matters. A rapidly accelerating record-pace outbreak raises the risk of cross-border spread and strains an already stretched regional health response, underscoring why WHO continues calling for urgent international support. U.S. Central Command announced it completed a 9th consecutive evening of strikes against targets in Iran, conducted July 19th at 10 p.m. Eastern. CENTCOM has not detailed further operational specifics beyond confirming the strikes occurred as part of its ongoing campaign against Iranian targets in the region. The strikes are part of a broader U.S. military posture in the Middle East that has continued for months amid escalating tension with Iran. Treasury's sanctions on Iranian weapons procurement networks earlier in July were tied to related regional friction, including Iranian attacks on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, and the Pentagon has confirmed American service member casualties during the broader campaign in earlier CENTCOM releases this year. Why it matters. 9 straight nights of strikes signal a sustained, not isolated, U.S. military campaign with direct implications for regional stability and shipping security, and a campaign that continues to draw scrutiny over its scope and endpoint. Like and subscribe for fact-based news from official government sources only. Leave a comment. Tell us what stories you want to hear.